We all need small games in our collection to play at the end of an evening, to take down the pub, or to throw in a bag on the off chance that you might get a game in case it's a particularly upbeat funeral. In between the bigger games that I've been reviewing, I'm always playing smaller stuff that wouldn't quite make it into a top 10 of the year, but I still get so much joy from. So in this video, I wanted to draw your attention to those games, to the quirky, underappreciated gems that fill the small gaps of your gaming shelves with fun. We've got 2-player games, card games, and social games. There's something for everyone. And if you want to buy any of them, there are links in the description below. Air, Land & Sea is one of my favorite 2-player games that I've raved about on this channel a couple of times. And now Spies, Lies & Supplies is a standalone sequel, come expansion, that is just as good. Once again, you're competing over 3 theatres of war. This time, economics, intelligence, and diplomacy. If you control 2 out of 3 of them, you win that battle. But the best bit of Air, Land & Sea is that if you think you're going to lose, you can withdraw from the battle early so that your opponent gets less points. They still get their victory parade, but you took the helium out of their balloons. It makes for a fascinating game. How long do you cling on to the hope that you can still win a battle? Very few games ask you whether you're self-aware enough to know that you're losing. And if you're too much of a pessimist, you can surrender to battles you would have won. Ideally, you'd look at your cards and think, I can't win this round, but all the cards in this game are good. The 6s are brute strength, and the rest come with a hand grenade strong enough to change the game, if played at the right time. Another thing I love about this game is there's only 18 cards, so it doesn't take you long to get to know them and expect them. There's even a reference on the back of the theatres. It means you get that satisfying feeling of knowing the game quicker than with other card games with loads of powers to remember. The way the cards combine with each other makes you feel clever. Retrofit lets you gain supplies, which count as strength, equal to a card that you flip. So you can flip your Grand Betrayal, adding 6 strength to that theatre, and next turn you can use another card to flip it back over, so now you've got 12 strength there. You only play 6 cards each battle, but every turn feels like a big turn. The cards in Spies, Lies & Supplies feel a little more dramatic than the original, and they fit the espionage and diplomacy theme. Neutralize lets you name a card, and if your opponent has it, they have to play it face down next turn, neutralizing it. I'm not usually one for sequels, I made a whole video about it, but this is a really distinctive alternative. And you can use it as an expansion, mixing and matching the theatres. Air, Lies & Sea, Spies, Land & Supplies, Bed, Bath & Beyond. You can even play an epic mode with 5 theatres, and there's rules for a team variant. I haven't gotten to any of that yet because I'm enjoying it too much as the base game. I think I prefer this version, but it's hard to be sure that that's not a novelty bias. I'm going to keep both in my collection for now. If you like head-to-head 2-player card games, you need to try one of these. Order Overload Cafe is a memory game, and everyone hates memory games because they're bad at remembering things. But you have no trouble forgetting that you hate memory games, do you? As players, you're working in a cafe, and there are loads of orders coming in that you have to collectively remember. You're all in it together. You don't have to remember everything as long as some of you remember most of it. One player reads off the orders: iced latte, hot tea, iced coffee, iced milk tea, ham and cheese sandwich, banana muffin, double espresso, strawberry milk. Were you listening? That was your one chance to remember everything. Then the orders are shuffled and dealt out, and you take it in turns to call out an item that you remember. Hot latte. You throw it out into the world like saying I love you and not knowing if it will be reciprocated. It's painful as each player in turn rejects it. Stupid idea, why did I think there was a hot latte? Until finally you hear a yes as they catch you in their arms. They discard that card, and the goal is to clear out 2 players' hands. So you don't need to remember all of the orders. And I promise you, you won't. Finishing a level feels like such an achievement, scraping the bottom of your brain to find that final matcha latte. It has those big group cheers that you get in The Mind or Just One, when someone remembers a chocolate shake that you're convinced has never passed your ears. If you call out an order that doesn't exist, you can no longer guess that round. And if everyone flunks out, you lose the game. But if one player clings on, they can keep guessing and win the round for everyone. It's nice that you're as bad as your best player, so a complete sieve for brains won't hold you back too much. It's not just that you won't remember the right things, you'll also remember the wrong things. Be fully convinced that you heard a banana milk when really it was a banana muffin or strawberry milk. The game is trying to confuse you with similar items, and you can get 2 or 3 of the same item come up, making it even harder. Each level, you tackle a bigger list. When you're trying to focus on memorizing, it's so distracting to hear new items like pancakes that you didn't even know your cafe sold. Now you'll remember pancakes and nothing else. Order Overload is an experience game. It gives you the same camaraderie as The Mind or Hanabi. And part of the fun is going up against your memory and finding you do better than you think you will. All of the 9 30-somethings that I played it with managed to do better than they expected. It turns out they were good at memory games, they'd just forgotten. Valbara is a lot like my favourite game from last year, Libertalia, but in a smaller, shorter form. It has the same mechanism at its heart. You're all vying for these cards in the middle, and you pick a tribe member to make your claim. The card with the lowest number will get first dibs. Imagine your rival schools at a sports day. You each have an array of 12 kids, from good to terrible, and if you waste your star athlete on discus, you won't have them available later to win the 100 meters. But you don't know what kids the other schools will put forward, so you could win an event with a weak 7 because everyone else fielded someone even worse. Everyone will go home with something, so you have to decide how important it is for you to have an early pick this round. Each of the land cards score in their own way. They're simple to grasp, but really encourage you to strategize, and that makes it easier to read what other players are likely to do. The person scoring 2 points for every farm they have is probably going to take another one. It's not so bad having third pick at the lunch queue if you want spaghetti carbonara and you know that the 2 people in front of you are vegan. If anything, you can win some brownie points by letting them go first. And Valbara is the same. Each character comes with an action, and the higher the number, i.e. the later your pick, the stronger the power. If your neighbors are fighting over rivers and there's one available this round, you can anticipate that and play the crafter and score 5 points for playing after them. I love that you can see what's up for grabs this round and next, so you can plan ahead. There's a really nice amount of stuff to consider each turn. What's available, what everyone else is collecting, and how the actions will interact with that. But it's never overwhelming. You only have 5 cards to pick from each round. They've struck that balance just right. What impresses me with Valbara is how smooth the experience is. It's distilled a bigger, longer game into something that fits into a small box, but still packs big decisions. For example, if you play the same role as someone else, the tie is broken by the hierarchy on the top of the deck. It's such an elegant solution, and it means you can look at it before each round to see how likely you are to win ties. Valbara is less brutal than Libertalia. You always get something of value, and the game pits you against each other. For example, only one player can get the coveted 4 mountains worth 30 points, but you can't kill other players' characters. It won't leave a sour taste in anyone's mouth, so I think it has a wider appeal, even though I prefer the bite of Libertalia. I don't think one cancels out the other. Valbara can't replace the more interesting arc that you get in the longer game of Libertalia, with the way the hands evolve each round and the variety of the characters that give you a different dynamic every game. But Libertalia can't match Valbara's immediacy. I could take it anywhere, fit it into a game night easier. I'll probably end up playing it a lot more. And at the end of the day, the game you're playing is always more fun than the one sitting on your shelf. A few years ago, I fell in love with a party game called I My Favorite Things, and I taunted my viewers by recommending it when it wasn't available to buy. And today, I'm gonna do it again. But this time, there is hope because it's coming to Kickstarter later this year. It's now called My Favorite Things, and it's one of my favorite party games of all time because it plays on your knowledge of your friends. It does that by having you rank your favorite things in a category. For example, cheese. You write down 6 cheeses, then secretly rank them. 1 being your favorite cheese of all time, and the rest are cheeses you like in the order you like them. The 0 card is for a cheese you don't like. Even before the game has really started, it's fun being forced to rank your favorite comedians or Flavor of Crisps, or Game of Thrones characters. Then once you've ranked them, you pass your cards to your neighbor. They can see what cheeses you've written, but have no idea of their rank. Everyone now has a hand of cards to play a simple trick-taking game with. You each play a card, so you've got Daenerys going up against Stilton, James Acaster, and Salt and Vinegar. Then reveal their values. Whoever played the best card, the most favorite thing, wins that trick. So you have to use what you know about your friends to guess which cards are the strongest. And it's such a fun challenge, pulling at your memory for a clue. Didn't they once say that they hated Roquefort? Or were they talking about the village in northern France? You could be lifelong friends, but just never had an in-depth conversation about cheese before. It's not a friendship I'd want, but it's possible. The best bit is when you reveal the ranks and find out that, to your surprise, Becky only gave Camembert a 3. An inquisition immediately takes place, and you get to know each other even better because you find out that her tastes, like the cheese, have matured over time. It's the perfect level because it gets you talking about each other, but unlike other games in this vein, it never gets mean or personal. And you learn stuff about each other, but in a way that's fun and silly and never veers into a cringy team building exercise. I love that you get to pick the category for your friends, so you can get really creative with it and set the tone based on the group. When I've played with my schoolmates, we've had players ranking their favorite friends. We're just waiting for someone to have 6 kids so we can do favorite children. And it even works with people you've just met because you can pick a really soft category that most people would agree on, like Spielberg films, knowing Jurassic Park will be at the top. If it isn't, you don't want to be their friend anyway. I've never had a bad time with this game. It's just what you want from a party game. It's relaxed, it's funny, and it brings a group together. I'm really glad it's coming back in print so other people can enjoy it too. I've put a link to the publisher's website below where you can sign up to be notified when the Kickstarter's live. I'm not a fan of the Star Wars franchise, and that can make it quite hard to live on this planet. Almost as hard as it is to be a Star Wars fan, from what I can gather. I would usually overlook Star Wars games like a meat eater ignoring a vegetarian sausage, but occasionally they can conjure something out of soy protein that's so good it transcends the divide. And today is the day I enjoy a Star Wars game. It's the new 2-player deck building game, a game that quite obviously builds upon other 2-player deck building games like Star Realms, but it adds some interesting innovations. One of you plays as the Empire and the other as the Rebels, and you're trying to destroy your rivals' bases. Whoever does it first wins the game. But as with any deck building game, you have to build up your strength. You start with a pathetic starter deck of nameless red shirts, and use them to buy better cards that will attack, defend, and buy more efficiently. The cards you can buy are in a row in front of you, and they come out of the deck at random. I really like that because it's simple to set up, and it makes the game evolve differently each time you play. It means your strategy has to constantly adapt to what's available. It also adds drama to the game. As soon as you buy a card, a new one is added, and if you reveal Luke Skywalker, famously the son of Buzz Lightyear, you're desperately hoping your opponent can't afford it. A lot of the cards are specific to each faction. Only the Rebels can buy Princess Leia because it wouldn't make sense for her to side with the Empire. But one of the best bits of the game is that the other side can attack that card, removing it from the galaxy row to stop your opponent from getting it. It adds to that fun deck building dilemma of short term versus long term. Do you kill Leia so they can't use her against you later? Or go straight for the win and use those attack points to hit their base. Another thing you have to keep your eye on is the force track. This is a little tug of war you have going on between you. Some cards will let you pull it towards your side, and if the force is with you, it makes certain cards way more powerful. Darth Vader has 6 attack power normally, but if the force is with you, it goes up to 10. It can be easy to neglect it. Each little force benefit on their own isn't so bad. It's like them getting a 10% discount. But if you let your neighbor get 10% off every shop, it's gonna add up, and suddenly they've got a swimming pool and you've lost. Another nice touch is that the base cards have special powers, so when they destroy one, the next one you pick can suit your strategy. Like the Death Star can destroy a capital ship for 4 spending power, so it's perfect late in the game where you're no longer buying cards and they've got loads of defensive ships blocking you. It's remarkably smooth. For an IP game, there's no pointless bells and whistles. The few additions that they've made to this genre of game serve the theme and the gameplay in the same breath. If you like Star Wars, it's a no-brainer, and if you don't, it's still a great two-player game. With every other game on this list, I could draw a line back to older games that they've taken inspiration from, but the number is unlike any game I've ever played, which is apt because in this game, the goal is to be different. You each write a 3-digit number in secret, any number you like. Then you all reveal them and put them in order. Starting with the highest number, you check to see if they're approved. If it contains any digit in any of the numbers below it, it's eliminated. So if the top number is 800 and lower down there's a 282, then 800 is dead. That player won't score any points this turn. And as you go down the list, once you get to 282, if there's a number below that with a 2 or an 8 in it, such as 118, then 282 will be eliminated. So you want to use digits that no one else has. Zig when they zag. But which number is zig and which is zag? If you're safe, you get points equal to the first digit in your number. And this is the genius of the game. 800 was the highest number and therefore the most likely to be eliminated because it had more players below it to clash with. But if it had survived, it was worth 8 points. Whereas the cowardly 118, the least willing to stick their head above the parapet, is only worth 1 measly point. And the game is enticing you to be brave by giving an extra bonus to the highest approved number that turn. So there are obvious moves, but if you do the obvious, you'll surely clash with someone else. But of course, everyone knows that and tries to avoid the obvious. It feels like being a teenager. You can try so hard to be different from the mainstream, then find that being different is the new mainstream. Every reveal is exciting when you quickly scan the numbers to see if you've been eliminated, and the buzz you get when you realize you've gotten away with it for once. It's your job to police the other players. It's like you're all a bunch of criminals after a heist, and you've all agreed that you won't play a 9 and run off with the loot. But you can't trust each other, so it's on you to lay a trap. You play a lower number with 9 as one of the digits, and it will stop anyone from stealing the fortune. But it comes with a huge downside. If your number is approved, you cross those digits off your board, and you can't use them again this round. So if you play 9 as a trap, you won't ever be able to use it to score 9 points for yourself. As the turns go on, you can look at everyone's board and see what numbers they have left, so you know who can block you. It makes the game crescendo as the options narrow, but the rewards increase. In the 5th turn, with less digits available, you're much more likely to be eliminated, but if you can survive, you get double the points. So you can plan for that round. Save the numbers that you think other people will have already used. It's hard to know how much of these games is actually down to being able to outthink other players and how much is just luck. The number is definitely not for everyone. If, for example, you think the mind is just an activity, I suspect you won't like this game either. But to me, there's a social magic to these types of games, and I'd rather enjoy it than be skeptical of it. There's just enough going on to encourage players to do the same thing and create that will they, won't they excitement. Phantom Inc. is in my favorite genre of party games, where you play in teams trying to guess a secret word. And despite some serious competition, it still manages to stand out. Each team has a ghost, the clue giver, who is trying to communicate the same secret word to their team of mediums who are guessing. It's always something simple like parrot or rainbow, the sort of important messages that a ghost would be trying to communicate from the afterlife. Every turn, the mediums will pick 2 questions to ask their ghost. Things like, where is the nearest one, or what mood does it cause? The word could be anything, so they're trying to narrow it down from infinity, like picking something to watch on Netflix. The ghost chooses the question they want to answer and shows their team. The other team doesn't have any idea which question is being answered, but they will get to see the answer, or at least part of it. Since the ghost is communicating via a Ouija board, they slowly give 1 letter at a time, revealing their answer. And when their team thinks they know what is being communicated, they shout "Silencio" to stop the ghost from writing any more, so they don't give the other team too much information. If the question was what mood does it cause and the ghost writes HA, their team will assume the answer is happy because they know it's a mood. But the other team doesn't have that context, so to them, the answer could be hat or hand or harpsichord. I love discussing the other team's answers with my teammates, trying to work out what they could mean and then how it fits in with what you know already, or think you know. Like a whodunit, you can pin your whole theory around one piece of evidence, convinced that WA means water, and then later realize it could be wax, and suddenly you see all your other clues from a new perspective. You end up with all these fragments of words that are vaguely connected to the secret word, and it's the medium's job to piece together those clues faster than the other team. You feel like Amy Adams in Arrival trying to understand this alien language, and eventually it all clicks together in your head and feels incredible. There's a great tension to the game because after your team gets a clue, the other team can make a guess to win the game, so you're terrified of helping them by making your clue word too obvious. So you call Silencio after one letter, but then end up confusing yourself because the letter T could be so many words. If you think you know the answer, you guess one letter at a time, and the ghost will knock if it's correct. It's a clever system because it means you're not giving too much away to the other team by guessing. And so many times we've been convinced that we've got it, and then not made it past the first letter. Playing as the ghost isn't quite so interesting. It's a much less taxing job than giving clues in Codenames or Decrypto, but that makes this game a lot more approachable. Phantom Inc. is perfect to play with kids, older relatives, and non-gamers, but it's still interesting in an experienced group because the mediums will call Silencio after one or two letters and make the deduction that much harder. Quickety Pickety is exactly what I want from a filler game, a quick burst of fun that's easy to explain, set up, and play. If it were a fruit, it would be a grape, straight in the mouth, no messing around. If your filler game takes as long to get into as peeling an orange, then it needs to taste better than an orange. I'm gonna want chocolate in there or something. It's a real-time game. We're all flipping fruit tiles in the center at the same time and deciding whether to take them or not. If you take one, you must put it into a set, and then you're stuck with it. You can't put it back. Each set is a collection of fruits of the same color or the same shape, and they have to be in the same mood. A set should either be all happy or all sad. And if you taint your batch of fruit with the wrong face, it's worth -10 points. I love how punishing it is of mistakes because it stops you from just taking tiles brainlessly. The other neat touch is that every round is different. Sometimes you want to collect really big sets, other times lots of small sets, or only sets that are an even number. Plus, there's a special fruit to look out for that's worth extra points. It stops you from getting into too good of a rhythm with the game, so it's always a challenge. Whoever scores the most in a round gets a victory point, and it's first to 3 points to win the game. So it doesn't matter if you completely mess up one round, it won't put you out of the running forever. I don't usually like competitive real-time games because there's such a gulf between the good and the bad players that it can be a bit embarrassing. But Quickety Pickety is simple enough that anyone can compete. To win a round of Noggin, you've got to say the right thing faster than anyone else, which is also how you win at being sympathetic. You're flipping cards onto the 3 stacks until you get a challenge. Then you've got to use the 2 letter cards to give an answer. If the challenge is word association and the letters are L and B, you could shout lemon and banana because they're 2 words you'd associate with each other. If the challenge was bookend, you could say ball or lab because they have L and B as their first and last letter. Whereas if the challenge was middle letters, you could say elbow because the letters are in the middle of that word. Whoever gets there first wins the challenge card as a point, so everyone's desperate to blurt out the first thing that enters their head. Love and bandages aren't words that you'd associate, but would be a good name for a country song. If you shout out the wrong thing, you have to put one of your challenge cards back in the prize pot. I like that every challenge foxes you in a different way. It seems so easy to come up with a word that doesn't include L or B, but your brain just can't help but fixate on them and pretend like no other words exist. My favorites are the tougher ones. Describe, which you need to pair an adjective and a noun, such as lamentable bankruptcy, which is definitely something I would come up with on the spot. And initials, which ask you to think of a famous person or fictional character with those initials, such as Blake Lively or Lindsey Buckingham, or as I like to call them, Gossip Girl and Rumours Man. As much as I love the challenge itself, I love hearing other people's failed attempts. Play it late at night with some competitive friends, maybe some alcohol, and you're guaranteed to entertain each other. Another nice little touch is that as you're flipping the letter cards, if you ever create a 3-letter word like toy or butt, the first person to shout it out can steal a point from someone else. So you've got to keep your wits about you at all times. And only if you can read the word clockwise around the circle, which is such a great trap that the game lays for you. This isn't red, it's duh. But you'll excitedly shout red and then lose a card for it. Noggin has a similar feel to the game Anomia, which I also love. And it's hard to pick between the two. I like the variety in Noggin, and it's slightly tougher, whereas Anomia is a bit more idiot-proof. Both are loads of fun. So in summary, boisterous lark, belly laughs, little box. There are loads of push your luck card games inspired by blackjack, where you flip cards off the top of the deck until you either stick or go bust. And No Mercy is one of the most entertaining I've ever played, because you can steal cards from the other players. If I flip an 8, I can take all the 8 cards in front of the other players. And I will, because each card is worth 8 points at the end of the game. But if the next player flips an 8, they'll take the stack off me. So the prize pool jumps around the table, getting bigger each turn, until you manage to keep it in front of you for a whole round, because then you get to add them to your permanent stash. The points flying around are huge, that it's such an incentive to keep taking risks and flipping more cards. But it's not just so you can steal all the points, it's to stop someone else from stashing them forever. So long as your dream crush is dating other people, there's still a chance they could end up with you, but once they're married, you'll never get them. Everyone around the table is begging you to keep pushing your luck, so it's still up for grabs for them to steal off you on their turn. There's a duty to the table to play sheriff and stop the next player from making out like a bandit. Unlike some card flipping games, every turn is exciting for the whole table because you're either stealing, being robbed, or praying that the fat stash is coming your way. Of course, if you draw 2 of the same number, you go bust and get nothing that round. Except to stop you from going bust too soon, the game won't let you bust until you have 3 cards. It's a nice buffer to stop you from having a really miserable turn. And it adds some interesting thought to the game. You might decide not to steal a stack of 2s because it will waste your buffer to not get that many points. And you're holding out for something more valuable. There's still plenty of luck in the game, but that's what makes it entertaining. It has big moments. Push your luck games are meant to be lucky. I'd rather play one that's punchy and fast like this than one that overcomplicates itself trying to mitigate the luck. If I wanted strategy, I wouldn't play a game like this. If you can't get hold of No Mercy and you're after another great game in this style, my other favorite is Push. I'll link to my video for it below. Those are 10 small games that I've been enjoying recently. And if you want to hear about the games that I haven't been enjoying, I talk about them all in my monthly newsletter, which you can get by becoming a patron of the channel using the link below. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching.